All right, welcome back to the JELI Cards podcast, where Luke, Eric, and I are spreading the love of the hobby. This is episode 87 of season 2. You can listen to all our episodes on both Spotify and Apple Podcasts, including YouTube now. And if you are enjoying these topics, please give us a rating and a follow on both Spotify and Apple.
So,
Welcome back,
what's up,
guys.
Jason?
Hey.
Just chilling, man.
Oh, Luke's sending balloons. That's cool.
Luke's over there sending us balloons. That's
sending
nice.
balloons. That's cool. Nice.
Yeah. It was unfortunate you guys weren't able to join last week when I had the episode with Pro Wrestling Kingpin. I feel like you guys would have been able to give some pretty good insight on at least reminisce. I know,
Yes.
I know a lot, but
I can reminisce.
I remember the days of you guys coming over to the house and us watching Monday Night Raw
it
and
was
Friday
years
Night
ago,
SmackDown.
though, man.
Yeah,
That was years
I mean,
ago.
you guys could at least
No,
told some
I think
stories.
it's better that you two-
Eric, you could have shown a picture of you and Stone Cold.
I haven't even looked up cards from that set. Have they hit eBay?
Yeah, oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, are they pretty ripped
Not
through
any,
now? Like, are they? Did
there's
anybody find
none-
any of the Rock ones, or?
I have not seen any of the Rock ones surface, but I know on one of the shows after the Royal Rumble, one of the announcers, Michael Cole, and I talked about this in the episode. He ripped like one of the best.
Michael
CM
Cole
Punk
and you talked in person?
No,
I
I
heard the same
talked
thing.
about him
Oh,
on the episode.
I was like,
Okay.
damn,
we
you have
talked-
Michael Cole on here? Like, what the hell? When's that episode dropping?
No,
What's going on here?
I mentioned it about Michael Cole on the
Yeah.
episode last week, and he pulled one of the best CM Punk cards in the set.
Oh,
I think
cool.
it was
didn't
like
know
his
he was...
gold out of 50 or something. His
cool.
auto.
I didn't know
And
he
I'm
was
like,
a collector. Or maybe he's
No,
not.
it's
Just
WWE was doing a thing where they
Oh.
basically were giving a lot of the superstars packs to open from Topps Chrome. So while
That's
they were
annoying.
doing all their press conferences
That's
and
annoying.
everything, they were all ripping cards.
Oh yeah, that's really annoying, especially when somebody pulls a CM Punk out of 50 gold.
And he literally was like, "Oh," and he's like, "I'm like, oh dear Lord, like,
Who
what
wants
are
to
you
hold it?
Yeah, what are you doing, man? You just pulled one of the best cards in the set, and you're literally just flipping them around." But today, I had a complete different episode set up for us. When I know during the week I wanted to talk about the Luka trade. I wanted us to kind of recap the Super Bowl, talk about how those two major things that happened in sports could affect the card markets. But then yesterday morning happened.
Yeah,
and
John.
John got me all riled up.
Yeah.
And so we're flipping the switch.
Way to go,
We're
John.
talking about something completely different. The guy was trying to gaslight me in the text messages, calls me out, expects me not to answer, and then I answer, and he's like, "Hey, man,
This
it's
is
your
so
fault that you
funny
answered me."
because
So
it's so funny because you hate John, and he's not here to
I
defend
don't-
himself, and we know he's gonna listen, and I'm giggling about it. It's so funny.
oh yeah,
And the other part is that I had part in that conversation, which set you off a little bit. But all of your hate is directed at John. I love it. It makes me laugh.
no, this is why I got upset. Is because at one point in
Yeah,
the text,
why don't
he
you
just,
lay it out
he was just
so
like,
people...
he was just
why you
like,
sh-
why are we still even talking about this? Okay, so basically,
yeah, we should
were
lay it out so people
yes,
aren't
but
like...
this is the whole this is the whole point of the episode, and we will get to it.
Yeah.
But the part that angered me the most was he was like, "I don't even know why we're still talking about this," and I'm like, "Well, you brought it up." You
So-
said, "No, you brought it up."
So what
And that
did he or
that
you
just sent me
bring
to
up?
spine.
What are we talking about?
We gotta set the table here for the
okay.
people who
Before
aren't
we
privy.
even get into that, I want to see some show and tell.
Oh yeah, I
because
guess we gotta do
Eric,
show and tell
Eric
real
was
quick.
showing off a card that was super sweet, and I want everybody.
Yeah, Luke, why
I
don't
don't
you
have
go
any
first
cards
though?
today.
Yeah,
Sorry,
Luke,
guys.
show us your card. All
Yeah,
right,
Luke's
all right.
on
Well,
Luke's doing a
Kick
road
him.
game right now.
kick him off.
Yeah. No,
All
we
right,
appreciate
Eric.
it.
Show us what you got, man. Oh, that is so good. That
Maybe
is
it's.
that is
I don't know. Like
honest.
I don't know what the. I don't know what a better way to like. So it's a
Well,
PSA nine.
probably horizontally.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
PSA 9 of, I guess, Upper Deck did a Space Jam dedicated run for, and they made cards out of scenes from the movie. So it's Lola Bunny saying "nice butt, nice butt." So
That's
I
that's a
wish this
sweet
would.
card.
I wish this was a 10. But maybe I should crack it and send it to SGC, and maybe somehow it'll get a super duper awesome, super mega ultimate 10. Yeah, we go.
Well, I'm gonna show my. But
Yeah.
first off, did you buy that card off of eBay or
Yeah,
where'd
I
you
bought this
find that card?
raw off of eBay. I think I bought, somebody was selling like this and like other cards from this set, and they were like $2 each. So I was like, yeah,
Oh,
gimme.
Yeah, easy.
So I was like, I looked at the best one, and I was like, oh, this one's like, this is in pretty decent shape for being almost 20 years old,
yeah,
right? 20 years old, yeah,
Mhm.
30 years old.
30.
Oh my god, this card's almost 30 fucking years.
Yep.
Oh, I just had a struck of mortality here. Oh,
Yeah, man,
shit.
we're getting
Yeah,
older.
Oh, I was like, damn, I couldn't do math for a second there. Damn. So I was like, all right, cool. Yeah, I'll send it off. And I mean, hey, I'll take a 9 plus the card.
I was about to say, I mean, for a card just probably sitting in somebody's like collection.
That's what I mean. It was somebody's just like throwing it around or whatever. It's just
just probably rolling around in it.
Yeah.
All right, but this is what I got. So I pulled these aside because I actually plan on selling these 2 cards just on my own page. They've been sitting in my box for a long time, but I have 2 Pokemon cards to show. I was hoping. I mean, I was kind of just. I was at the time when I bought them. 9s were going for a lot higher than what they are basically now, and I missed the cut because it took forever for. This was at the time when PSA was getting flooded. I missed the chance to be able to sell them when they actually could make me some money. But I have 2 graded cards from the Pokemon set Hidden Fates, and they are 2 shiny versions, and one is of shiny Charmander. So
Dope.
it graded a PSA 9, which I pretty much thought that this one would get a 9. And then I thought this one, so I also have shiny Charmeleon. I thought this one could potentially get a 10.
Now.
So here's my thing. Yeah, this one graded a PSA 9. I thought about it. So I thought about, well, maybe I should just keep them, get the shiny Charizard from the set, and then from that set, and then have the collection of all 3. But I think the 9 is probably still a decent amount of money that I just wasn't willing to like try to drop that money on getting the PSA 9 of Charizard. So I'm probably just gonna sell these cards.
Or you could just get it raw and grade it.
Or I could just get a Lola Bunny card and for $2.
I agree. I think
a Foghorn Leghorn. A nice Foghorn Leghorn
I
card.
just sent you some banger Foghorn Leghorn cards. Like,
yeah, I'll
you
have
don't
to
get
check
that Foghorn Leghorn stretching with Nolan Ryan, like you're screwing up, because that card's awesome.
I will have to
for $35, it's a PSA 10.
Wait, is it
Foghorn
not
Nolan
from
Ryan?
Is it not from the Space Jam set?
No,
this is just a separate.
This is just like a completely random card with Foghorn Leghorn and Nolan Ryan, which is like cool. What a crossover!
Damn. That
also,
is cool.
That one from '64 with Elmer Fudd and Foghorn, like that card's sick. It's like that. It's like the cigarette card. I sent it to you. It's like that. It's 9OC, which is crazy. That's a crazy grade.
Oh, 9, but I forgot why. I forgot why they did that. They put that I think
still
it's something...
the fact that it's a 9. I don't care that it's off centered. It's a 9. It's such a clean card from '64. Wow.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good for being a card from the '60s.
Yeah, it's clean.
Yeah,
I know nobody listening to this can see it, but
all right. So yes, let's get into it, because there's probably going to be a lot that at least I will have to say for sure, because I am I'm the odd man out in this conversation. I'm the one that doesn't see a problem with it, but what we're basically going to talk about is we're going to talking about grading cards, within the hobby, but The three of them, John, Eric, and Luke, all dislike the fact that there are certain grading companies out there who decided to make a grading scale from 1 to 10, but then also decided to make a what they like to call a super duper 10. So a company like SGC has the gold label 10. So they have a regular gem mint 10, and then they have the gold label pristine 10. BGS, Beckett grading, has a pristine 10, and then they have the black label 10. And then CGC also has a gem mint 10, but they also do a pristine 10 as well. So
Do you hear
basically,
yourself?
I understand
do you
it. Like,
hear yourself? Like, I feel like this is going to be a short topic. Just like, what are we doing here?
No, I understand. Like, I understand like where you guys are coming from. But to me, and what I keep trying to get through to John is that
It always comes back. It always
It's not
like
even us.
John's not even here, but I'm
John. It's just John. It's
well, it was because John
man.
and I were John and I were going back and forth in the chat yesterday about this, and what I'm trying to get at is you have to understand. So you guys, we use PSA all the time. PSA is one of the few grading companies that I know of that stops at 10. Gem Mint
But we
10,
should
that's it.
specify why we use PSA as a business.
Well, yeah, we use PSA because they give you the most value in return.
Right.
We all understand.
We should put that on the record. So like,
yes, we understand.
I don't have an opinion for JELI about PSA other than that's going to give us the most return.
Yes.
And like, that's just full stop there. Now,
Yeah.
if we get into PC stuff, that's when it's going to get fun because it's like, yeah, I don't, just like super.
Well, if you're gonna PC, okay, we'll get if you're gonna PC cards, you might as well PC them with SGC, who's gonna cost you $15 to grade a card, and then you're gonna get it back in 5 to 10 days. Like there is no, in terms of price and turnaround time, CGC by far is the best.
Well,
and we know that. Well,
I could agree with that if they all if they all stack neatly with each other, then like I would be way more on your side. But because I have all my collections in PSA, I can't buy non-PSA because I'm not going to be able to handle the bumps in the stack.
Yeah.
And that's not going to be good for me. So,
but here's the thing. This is
an unfair reason to not like other grading companies, but like
True.
it's just I'm just being honest. Like I can't argue that the black label, whatever, or the pristine, or whatever the super duper mega 10s are better than some PSA 10s. Can't argue that, but if they all just agreed to just make the same plastic casing. So they didn't. I need them to stack neatly. Okay, I need them to stack. You guys know how I feel. I don't do the BCW top loaders.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah,
I'm Ultra Pro. Okay, I don't want to feel the different. I don't want that.
Yeah.
So that's my own weird reason why I don't like to grade with other people, because like I can't. It's not gonna stack neatly, and that will keep me up at night.
But here's my thing about PSA and why I think it's okay for other companies to have super duper 10s, to have two different types of 10s, because okay, PSA, they're now starting to change their criteria for grading. So they used to be 60-40 for centering, which is, I mean, that's pretty, like, a pretty significant difference when a lot of the other companies were basically 55, 55-45.
I agree.
So for them to do
60-40,
really, I mean, it really kind of gives them a lot more leeway to give out more 10s. I can now grade this card. I can give this card a 10, even though it's pretty off-centered. Like, I can visibly see that this card is off-centered, but I can grade it enough to still be able to give this card a 10. Now, you can have a card from PSA that is visibly flawed and they still give it a 10. But then there are still other cards out there that are better looking than that one card. Like there are what considered, which is what a black label is, there are cards that are considered perfect all around. All the criteria, edges, corners, surface of the card, and the centering is almost damn near perfect. And that is where you get the black label 10s. That's what BGS looks at when BGS gives you the subgrades on a card. And if somebody decides, hey, you know what? I think all of these subgrades should be 10s. Why should that card be graded the same as a PSA 10 where the centering is visibly flawed and they're not the same card anymore? And that's where I'm coming from, and that's why I was getting upset with John because
John. Yep.
yes,
Specify with
I was
John.
getting upset with it,
Yep.
John, because
With
one
John.
he kept talking about he kept saying, well, how can a grader do that without seeing all the rest of the cards? I'm like, why? What does it matter what the other cards look like if the card sitting in front of me is perfect? Like if everything's perfect on that card, why can't I give that card a perfect a black label 10, and then the next card that comes through, I also if that card looks perfect, I give that one a black label 10. Like, what does it matter?
Yes,
Like that, it doesn't matter what the rest of the cards.
I think you brought up two different conversations. Like I think the PSA parameters getting tighter is a completely separate conversation from super duper 10s versus base 10s. Do I think PSA's parameters should be tighter? Sure. I don't. Sure. Yeah, I'm all with it. I'm 100% with it. But like, it's just like, if these other grading companies are going to be like, yeah, but we're going to be really, 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 really strict with our grading, then just make the super duper 10s your base 10.
But you have to understand, because they average the scores out. Like they average the grades out. That's why
I get
they
it.
do it.
I get it.
So
but like,
so if you are averaging it out and it's getting like, and you get, you know, how BGS does 9.5s. Back when we started back in like 2019, 2020, a gem mint 9.5 from BGS was the equivalent of getting a PSA 10. Those were the same grades. Like that actually was the same grade in terms of value when reselling. They were basically the same thing. That's why a lot of people were okay buying up a lot of gem mint 9.5s. But I mean now here's the thing: if it's averaging out with the grades, and now it's getting a pristine 10, or now it's getting a black label 10, well, that it's a different card. Like it's a completely different card from PSA's, just regular PSA's 10. Like
yeah, I think John, because I'm just, you're not mad at us. You're only mad at John, which I totally get, and that's completely fair. And like, I encourage that, actually. He doesn't have anything else going on in his life, so like,
no,
he definitely
he's literally waking up tomorrow to watch this.
All he does is just wake up and stare at his phone, waiting for us to text him and us to yell at him, or more specifically, you to fight with him. So yeah,
I haven't fought with him in a long time too. So that was the first fight in a while.
Yeah, that was good, and like that was honestly born of just my friends roasting me about how goofy these names are, which was like, I was like, oh, cool, that got the group chat going. So that was I was happy to stay out of it. So like, I don't even remember the original where I was starting, but it's just like
okay. Let me ask you. Let me ask you guys. What is the problem with with SGC, BGS, and CGC? What is the problem with them giving out like pristine 10s? Like basically, there are gem mint 10s, but then they also give out pristine 10. Well, I think that's basically what it is. It's a grade 11. But isn't that an awkward grade to give? 11? Why don't you just call it like a perfect?
Then anything
why don't we just do like 17 to 89
plus or whatever it is awkward. That's also awkward.
I think 11 just aesthetically looks awkward to have 11 on it.
It does look
just
awkward.
like because they changed the label and everything too. So like CGC gives your label a completely different look. Obviously, SGC does a gold. It's called a gold label, so they put a gold border around it. Black
I
label,
get it.
it's a black label 10. That's
Yeah.
so they change it to look different. So it's not just it looks like the same grades that you're giving
Oh,
everybody else.
totally get that, but it's just like, I don't know anything, so everyone should just, understand that listening. The two people beyond the four of us that listen to this podcast. Like, I feel like they created this like super duper 10 just because they were like, oh god, PSA 10s are just smoking us in the market. So
well,
like,
they already had them. They had them in place before PSA became king. Like that was already in place before PSA became
like,
the
then
top.
it's just like, I don't know why you wouldn't just like. So that's even more to my point. So if there was a time where all of these companies were more, I guess, equal, then why wouldn't these companies, BGS, CGC, whatever, GMA, for Luke, like, why wouldn't they just make their super duper 10s normal 10s and then market it as, hey, we're actually giving 10s 10? Like, because that's a way to totally undercut PSA. Like, you make them, like, tighten their, parameters way quicker than what they're currently doing right now.
Yeah.
Because there was no pressure on them to do it. For whatever reason, they took off as and maybe I should know this as somebody who's in the know, but half my face is still numb right now, so I'm like worried about other things. So it's like got a root canal today, so that was fun. It's just like, I don't know. It, like, PSA took off, fine, whatever, and it's, yeah, they suck, but like it seemed like there was no pressure until recently for whatever reason for them to tighten their parameters on what a 10 is.
Yeah,
I'm
not sure
that PSA should make their parameters tighter. Yes, and I think that's a separate conversation from other companies giving out 10s and then super duper kiss on the forehead 10s.
But the only reason why I put those in the same topic is because I want to emphasize the fact that there is a difference. Like there is a difference between.
I totally get it, and I
like
think
even
PSA's parameters
pristine,
should be way tighter than they are. Like 60-40 is real loose for if you're going to be the king, but like.
And I think that's why they're the
only
king. Like I think that's why they became the king. I think they did
I guess that could be
I personally believe, and I mean for people who have listened to this podcast that knows that I'm more of like an SGC guy. I don't really lean heavily towards like always having to grade with PSA. I personally think
Luke's
PSA probably.
Guy.
Yeah, I think they loosen their criteria and loosen their parameters of grading in order to become king. If you want more people to grade with you, isn't it a great business like mindset to be, hey, let's just give out more 10s, and the more 10s we give out, the more people are just gonna now keep grading with us and grading with us and grading with us? Like that's a good way. And then now that they've basically cornered the grading market where they're just dominating every other company in terms of overall numbers and overall submissions, now, hey, we're going to make the parameters of our grading criteria. We're going to make it harder to get a PSA 10. And not to mention, by the way, we're upping our prices too. So now we're going to make it more money for you guys to have to grade with us. But they've already cornered it. Like they've already cornered that market.
Yeah.
And to, like John says, I mean, and I'm sure that's probably the rest of the hobby is it's PSA 10 or bust. If I don't get a PSA 10, I'm not going to make money off this card.
Or unless you, well, no, not really. Cause I think you still have a point that the BGS black labels, I think they outsell PSA 10.
Oh, they do, and they definitely do.
So there you go.
That is
so
the ultimate. I mean, that's the ultimate grade. There's no better grade in the hobby. Yeah, there is no other grade in the hobby that's better than the black label 10. Like that is your ultimate like goal. I mean, if you're sending to BGS, that's what you're hoping. Like I'm just sitting here praying that one of my.
So BGS should have made their black label 10 their 10. and made their base level 10 their 9.5.
Well,
And
that's,
then
I mean, I guess
they
that's like
should
where
have
they're going with
marketed it
the,
like they should have just come out and been like, yo, we are just straight up stricter graders than PSA. So
yeah.
if you guys actually care about the quality of grading in the card, then you should submit to us because our parameters are posted tighter than PSA's. Because
Yeah.
whenever you sent that tic tac of that guy, like he was accessing some sort of website that was public knowledge that PSA was changing. So that was
And
updating
that's why
their whatever.
I think you just made
So
a
that's
really
what I
good
mean.
point there
That's what I
too.
mean.
Like,
These people should have made their super duper 10s their base 10 and then been like, yo, our 10s are actually better than PSA's
our tens are legit tens.
based on PSA's own vernacular,
Yeah.
based on PSA's own grading parameters.
So I think that ties into the question that John brought up in the group chat, which was he said, "Oh, what wouldn't this be a great topic for conversation? Is card grading in the hobby actually ruining the hobby? Has card grading basically become the emphasis of everybody's goal in the hobby, which is I need to grade these cards and I need to send them to PSA because they're going to make me the most money, and that's it." And I think you're right.
Oh,
Why would
definitely. I
you?
think
And
there's
I've said
definitely
that
a
to him
chunk.
before, and I've brought this up many times. If you know SGC and BGS are stricter graders, and it's harder to get gem mid grades out of them, especially with SGC. I know it's very tough to get an SGC 10. I can only imagine how hard it is to get a gold label 10 from them. Why isn't an SGC 10 more valuable than a PSA 10? Like if they are the stricter grader, like why wouldn't that be the card that people as collectors want to go out and get, or even investors? Why wouldn't they want an SGC 10 versus a PSA 10? Especially when PSA pop counts. I mean, there's some PSA pop counts that are, I mean, in the thousands and thousands. Like, why wouldn't the card with less tens be more valuable? Like that's why I
Because there's enough people who know that PSA is the name, like you said. There's not an. I mean, it's the same thing that when we started it was like the same reason why we only deal in PSA as a business. So like, there's like no.
yeah. So that's my point. And that's why I think PSA.
I have no idea
I mean,
how PSA became the big dog. Like I don't know
I don't
how
even
they
know.
just
I
like
don't
completely
honestly. I don't know either.
like 100x'd everybody else in the industry. Like I guess they must just be the oldest or whatever.
I don't even think that I don't even know if they're the oldest or not. I mean, but I honestly I don't know what caused PSA
like what it is. Yeah.
skyrocket past all these other grading companies. But I did write down some stuff that I saw that I got this from. I was reading an article on Sports Collectors Daily. They had this information like GemRate, the company GemRate.
Yeah.
They give out all like, the information on like the grading submissions and everything like that. Basically all the data from like month to month. So they put in this article that for January, from December to January and the month of January, you saw a massive increase in cards being graded across all four major companies. So like we've been talking about PSA, BGS, SGC, CGC. So in the month of January, across all four platforms, there was 922,000 sports card graded, and then 1.85 million cards, which includes TCG and non-sports across all four platforms. That's what it is. And then according to GemRate, for the month of January, Beckett showed the most growth from December to January. And if you look at, SGC also had a 28% increase from December to January. They graded 488% more football cards in January than they did in December. And then Beckett increased 64% from December to January. And then CGC had a 116% increase year to year. So as I was writing this down and I was reading this article, I feel like is there a shift now happening that people are starting to now grade more with these other with these other grading companies because PSA is getting stricter on grading and now they've raised their prices? Because now it is cheaper. It's cheaper to grade with SGC, BGS, and CGC. So are people now starting to think, hey, it's way too much money to go grade with PSA. Maybe I should try these other ones. Or, hey, it's going to be harder for me to get a PSA 10. Maybe I should try one of these other companies. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on hearing these percentages that these other companies were grading more cards from month to month versus PSA, because PSA they only increased 15% from December to January.
Yeah, but it's still total volume that you got to factor in.
Yeah, it is total volume, but there's still a larger
I think
increase
PSA
for
is
these
probably
other.
still doing what 10x, and the next company still, even with their whatever your crazy percent increases, where like these numbers sound insane, but like PSA is still like doing 90% or 95% of all graded cards in the market. Then like these increases are really less of a thing. I mean, I think your point still stands. I think there's just more people like you who are just like, yeah, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah, so in January, PSA graded 690,000 sports cards. SGC graded 160,000, and then BGS was at 29,000.
Jesus.
So
Beckett. My God,
yeah.
Beckett's getting absolutely just. Oh man, poor Beckett.
Yeah. So I mean, there is CGC was the number 2 grader last year in terms of overall cards graded.
Because I think a lot of people are just sending all their Pokemon cards there.
Yeah.
I mean, even if CGC can be the Pokemon people, like that's worth it in itself. If you could like take that away from PSA, that's a huge win.
So CGC had a 218% increase in football cards graded in the month of January, which I thought was pretty bizarre because when I think of CGC, I think of TCG. Like I think of Pokemon cards, Yu-Gi-Oh cards, Magic. But apparently people are now looking at CGC and going, hey, we're going to start sending some of our football cards there. I think they were increased 35% for basketball cards. So
that's pretty good.
I mean, I think overall, I think what's happening is I think there might start to become a shift where people might start drifting away from PSA because why should I wrote it down. Why should I pay if I say the Express, if I'm using the Express for PSA, they raised their price from $129 to $149. So it costs you $149 basically to get your card back in like a week. I think is it's like 7 to 10 days, whatever it is.
That's the Express.
Beckett only costs you $79.95, and then CGC only costs you $75. So it's like, why would I pay $149 to get my card back when I can just send it to BGS and pay $80? I think that's
because the back end selling probably also is double, or maybe even more percentage wise.
But it's like you're definitely taking a bigger risk and a bigger gamble grading with PSA when it comes to their faster services, and I think that's where SGC should be coming into play more often because of that quicker turnaround time. I mean, if you want the card, as long as the card I think is valued $1,500 or less, you could pay $40 and have that card back in 2 days. Like that's an insane turnaround time with SGC.
Yeah, but like how good does that card have to be to sell for that high? That's like what it means. Like, and there's like an obvious sell difference between PSA and SGC of the same card.
I mean,
unless you're telling me you're going to get like one of their super duper 10s, which is like the whole point is just like they've created this artificial market of super duper 10s that sell higher than PSA 10s, and I get why, but like as a guy who's just trying to get 10s and resell them, like I'm definitely selling my shit to PSA.
but let me so let's go based off of
It's
like Bowman
easier to get a
draft,
10
which
at
is what
PSA.
I mean, yeah, but we'll just talk about like we'll say Bowman draft. Okay, we pull a Paul Skeens, auto from Bowman draft, and we want that card back as fast as we can because we want to sell it right away while the set's still hot. Why wouldn't I just send that card to SGC and get it back in a day or two? If I think that card, even if it cost me $85 to get it back in 2 days versus paying $150 to try to get the card back, or paying for any of all these faster services, because even the Super Expresses
is the BGS base 10 versus the PSA base 10 difference less than whatever the difference is in grading? Unless you're going to tell me you're getting one of these super duper 10s, then like the obvious answer is sending it to PSA, because if you get a 10 on the back end, it's going to sell more. It's going to sell for higher, and you're going to make up your initial grading costs, no problem.
Yeah, but
if the gamble's all the same. But now if you're telling me like you're going to get one of these super duper 10s that we know sells for higher than PSA 10s, then okay. Then I won't argue with you. But like when you get the BGS base 10 or the BGS 9.5 versus the PSA 10, then sorry, man. It's just the gamble you took.
But it also, now you have to take into account that you're paying more money for the grading cost too. So it's like, I know I've made the argument before about it, and I think like Luke tried to do, I think, like the math for it about basically is like what's your like, I guess, overall like percentage like gain from it, from like versus like what you're paying for the grading costs, and then what you're selling it on the back end, like profiting more off of it even at a lesser value. I don't know. So I don't know. Luke was talking about doing the math.
You're gonna win every time if you can submit to SGC for half the price of PSA and get back their black label or gold label or whatever their super duper label is. Sure, there's no argument there, but like it's just not worth the risk versus PSA 10s. Known commodity, sell for higher across the board.
Yeah,
you're talking like as a business owner, or just like as a personal collector.
Well, and that's another thing too. Like, I mean, going based off of what John was saying about, like, it's basically his grading kind of ruining the hobby, because like, I mean, if I'm selling a card and I'm still profiting from selling an SGC 10, just a regular SGC 10, and I'm still profiting off of that, like, why I shouldn't have this mindset of, or I shouldn't have somebody scolding me saying, why are you going to buy this? Or why wouldn't you just send it to PSA? And because you'll make more money. You'll make more money doing this. You'll make more money. I mean, but if I'm still profiting, like, I mean, realistically, in the end, I'm still making money off the card. It's just, yes, I might not be making the most money, but I'm still making money. And that's what I think is the problem, that, PSA has just basically cornered the entire hobby into thinking, hey, it's us, or you're just not going to get anything from it. And that's what I have the biggest issue with.
Is that PSA's fault, or is that consumers' fault? Because,
well, I mean, it's probably both. I mean, yeah, it's probably both, because PSA, like I said, brainwashed. I used the word brainwashed. PSA brainwashed everyone into thinking that, hey, if you want to make money in this hobby, you got to grade with us. Like, we're the only company.
Is that their fault as a business who's trying to make money?
I mean, but now that they cornered all you guys, they got you guys in the room in the corner, and now there's like, hey, by the way, we're raising our prices and we're making it harder. But
I mean, making it harder. Now you guys are all faithful.
It does make me, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So like, I mean,
and
that's a good thing.
Wait until they get the super duper 10, and you guys are
all
going to be pissed off.
I don't think they're ever going to do that. I don't think they'd ever do that.
They might.
I don't think they could now. Like, I don't think they could, based just on their brand equity.
I mean, it would have been actually something they would have done instead of making it harder to get a PSA 10, if they wanted to like change the criteria of grading for them, they should have then just added the super duper 10. And then just be like, hey, we're gonna make a pristine 10.
No, you literally just explained why we think that the other company should just do a PSA 10. Like,
That's what
what
they
are you
should have done.
talking about? Like, no, you just make your 10 an actual 10 and then move everything down. Versus like super 10 or super duper 10 or just regular 10.
No,
Like, it's
I
so
want the
goofy.
super duper 10.
No, I want the 17 to 89 scale. Luke scale. That's what I want.
I want Luke's infinity scale.
Yeah, infinity scale.
I want exactly what Luke said. I want somebody to get a I don't know, a Luke 10 and be like, oh my God, I got the best grade in the set. And then they see a 12. And it's like, wait a second.
Then they see like a
And
16,
then they see a 30.
Yeah, and then they see a 600,000. Like, it's just like, oh, okay.
What would your
Yeah.
and then
Where
his
does it
super
stop?
duper one would just be his 10 would just be the infinity symbol. The ultimate grade.
No,
if you get
but
the
that,
infinity
but that,
symbol on
that
it.
symbol could never be reached. That's the whole idea behind it, is like there is no such thing as a perfect card, because every card is just going to continue to get more perfect the more like finite you look at it. That's his whole idea.
I
It's
think
like if
that
you want to go to like 1/1,000,000th of a decimal place in terms of centering, there's always going to be better cards than the next card. So there's no limit to the. If you want to get really mathematical, there's no limit.
guess, yeah.
The limit does not exist.
I guess. I don't know. I don't have a problem. I have no problem with these, with a gold label 10, a black label 10, pristine 10 from CGC.
Purple, green, yellow, red.
I don't see the issue for it. I think that's just what they chose to do with their grading. I think PSA obviously didn't go that route. But I think when you really kind of break down the numbers and break down the percentages of December to January and what you're already seeing, I think there could be a shift happening where, hey, people might not be happy that PSA raised their prices. People might not be happy that they might get less 10s now from PSA, and they might go the route of, hey, but you know what? Let me spend less money and try to get a Beckett, 9.5 or a Beckett 10 and see what happens. And I know John probably is. I know John's going to listen to this. And he's going to be very upset. John's going to be really upset when he found out that that CGC had a 218% increase in like football cards.
Yeah, but he's not going to. But like I said, like I'm going to be more not alarmed because I don't care, but like more like interested when SGC, BGS, and SGC collectively take 15%, 20% of market share away from PSA. Like, all these increases are great, but if PSA is still like 10xing them, then like they don't care.
Yeah.
Then PSA is like, okay, great, you're getting a bunch of okay, great, you're doing a bunch of business that I don't kind of care about because I'm still the king. But if those three like collectively start taking huge chunks from market share from PSA, then you're gonna see like, oh, we should probably drop our prices, and oh, maybe we should probably get a little tighter on grades, and we got to turn these things around faster. And like, that's what I mean. Like, these companies didn't compete with PSA, so PSA has no threat to yield to us or like make it better for us, because it's like, well,
yeah,
we don't have to, because all these companies just didn't, for whatever reason, didn't compete with us. I don't know why really, but they didn't. So I just get why PSA, who probably owns 90+% of the whole market share of graded cards, doesn't care that CGC is doing 4x year to year when they're doing 100 to 400,000 graded cards a year. Like, that's like a month to PSA.
Yeah.
Not even. Like, it's like that doesn't even register to them, because it's like, you're not you're not competing with us really. So those three got to figure out a way to compete with PSA seriously and make the hobby take them more seriously as buy and trade options, or PSA is not going to change because why?
I think one thing, and we can end on this too. I do think one thing that's great about grading within the hobby is that every company though kind of has their own niche. And I think
yeah. I mean, that would be
PSA,
fine,
yeah, and I think obviously we all know when it comes to CGC, it's Pokemon cards. It's TCG cards, mainly obviously Pokemon cards.
Yeah.
That's their niche. That's what everyone, and comics too. Obviously everybody uses, CGC when they grade comics. So that's their niche. That's what they do. PSA, basically it's anything ultra modern. It's really anything from the 2020s to the present day.
Yeah, maybe even
that's what they're grading. That's the bulk. Yeah, that's the bulk of their submissions is basically ultra modern. And SGC to me still is, I think, is the best when it comes to vintage cards. Cards that are in the 50s, in the 60s, even earlier than the 50s. That's still the bulk. That's still the highest percentage of cards that SGC is grading is in the 50s. So I think everybody, and then there's Beckett. I don't know what they do, honestly. They're right now they're just trying to survive, I guess.
Yeah, waiting for the death blow, waiting for the final.
they're just waiting to survive at this point.
Blast to the
but
head.
at least PSA, CGC, SGC, they all have their own. They all have their own focus, and there are people out there in this hobby that like to send their vintage cards to SGC. They want to send their Pokemon cards to CGC. And then if I have any ultra modern cards that are coming out in 2025, those are going to PSA. And so at least everyone kind of has their own little, route that they take when it comes to grading. But we can end there. So I really wish John was on this one. I really wish John.
It probably wasn't as fiery as he expected. But
if he was on it, I think, I wanted him on it too, because he's the one that brought up is grading bad for the hobby, or is grading starting to be bad for the hobby? And so I would really love to kind of get his perspective on it, especially because he's the one that's the most knowledgeable out of the four of us. Yeah. So when it comes to the hobby, it would have been great to get his opinion. But to anybody who is listening to this episode, if there are people out there other than us that actually listen to this podcast episodes, please chime in, actually, because I personally would like to get a lot of people's opinions or hear how people feel about grading within the hobby, and personally like to hear who they like to grade with. Is it PSA? Are they true to SGC? I've been with Beckett grading for X amount of years. That's what I like to do. Or you know what?
Been a GMA lifer.
GMA life, GMA for life, man. Hey, maybe you're doing ace grading, or maybe you're sending your cards to Arena Club and getting them graded.
The ace grading. Yeah, I forgot all about that.
Ace grading, HGA was out there for a while. That's another thing too. I'm really shocked that the companies who use computer-based algorithms aren't the better companies to grade with, because that has to be the more accurate grade, right? I mean, if a computer's doing it, how is that not the most accurate grade? But people don't like them. They takes out the human element, and then they all of a sudden they don't want it. So, but
yeah, I mean, there you go. That's a whole nother discussion. Honestly, they should probably be the number one.
Should. They should. If you're using computers to grade your cards like that, I mean, this has to be the most accurate grade that you can possibly get. But I would really love to get everybody's opinion on that. So please reach out to us. You can find us on our social media platforms. You can find us on Instagram. Of course, you can find us on YouTube. If you do see that we have an X, we have Facebook, but we don't really use those as much. So reach out to us on Instagram or YouTube. If you are enjoying these topics, please give us a rating on Spotify. Give us a rating on Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are trying to build that up as much as we possibly can. Thank you guys for recording with me. I appreciate it. Hopefully we can find a time next week as well to get another episode in. Everybody enjoy your week. Enjoy the weekend ahead. And as always, keep spreading the love of the hobby from your friends at Jelly Cards.